Taxman's taken all my dough and left me in my dumpster home, lazing on a dreary afternoon. Hey, friends, it's Wanda Duck, editor and publisher of the Dumpster Times, your weekly source for rants and raves about whatever ills are affecting society. Today, those ills are taxes. Yes, it's Sunday, Stupor Bowl Sunday, or should I say Concussion Bowl Sunday, and I'm not watching it. I'm going to record a quick little rant here about doing my taxes and how I have managed to live on $10,000 a year since 1973. Are you ready for it? Here we go. Taxes. Here are my taxes. And these taxes are ready to be taken to the senior center tomorrow, where somebody will take them and do them for me. And I don't have to add, because I don't like adding. I don't like filling out forms. And so for many years now, when it came tax time, I would look around my house and I would find the piles of forms scattered about. I didn't have any system of keeping them all in one place like I do now. And then I would contact the accountant, the guy in Kenmore who did my taxes. Well, he did them for 15 or so years. And unfortunately, when COVID arrived, he departed this planet. And so my files were sent to another certified public accounting firm in Barberton, where I went for a couple of years, but it was expensive, and I was getting ready to retire and not have so much to add up, to live on a fixed income. I look at that as a kind of relief. You don't have to worry about anything except those numbers that are going to be there every month. So anyway, to make a long story short, last year, I went to an agency here in Kenmore that empowers seniors with advice and help with taxes and other financial matters, sponsored by the good old United Way. So tomorrow, I will take my taxes to them, and it should be easy peasy, and I'll get some refunds and everything will be good. Now, I bet you want to know how I managed to live on $10,000 a year. Well, let's go back to 1973, the year I graduated from college, and when I made that decision that, I didn't really need to live on a lot of money. I'm an artist. I only want to live on what is fair. And so I did some figuring around, and at that time, the average wage in the United States was about $10,500 a year. Ooh, that was average. And so I thought, well, I'm not making that much on my $1.25 an hour library slave wage, but I could aspire to 10,000 a year. And that seemed like a reasonable number for a solo artist like myself to have. I didn't need any extra money for a fancy car. I didn't want money for a condo. I just wanted to create my art and live in happiness. And I figured that the less money I had to worry about, the happier I would be. Well, I got to tell you that I had no problem meeting that minimum year after year after year as a traveling, wandering, itinerant mask performer, maker, artist who traveled from Akron to DC to San Francisco and back over about a 10-year period. When I got back to Ohio in 1984, I started doing more odd jobs, and I never made more than $10,000 a year. In fact, even when I went sort of legit and got a part-time job at a bank, I was only doing it because the hours were so good. My work was done by around 7 or 8 every night, so I was free to go to the clubs and have a good time. You know what I mean? Anyway, It wasn't until I was 43 years old and I got a legit job in the system. Yes. I became a professional teacher, and that meant I had to go back to school and get a license and fill in those education classes that were missing so that I could become a drama teacher. And when I did become a fully certified drama teacher, my salary was $25,000 a year. This was in 1994. Yes, 95. And wow, I mean, on that much money, I could afford my own place. I could get a secondhand truck, which I did, and I could start living my life, which I did for many years as a teacher, 22 years, as a matter of fact. Being in a union, we had contracts, and that meant the longer you were a teacher, the more money you made. On the other side, though, in the federal government, there were people who were determined to make life miserable for students and teachers and eventually parents by changing the way things were done. And so the stirrings and rumblings of standardized testing came into full front with the entrance of No Child Left Behind and George Bush's policies, which meant we were all getting tested. And I had to go back to school again and rack up more student loans to get a master's, because if you had a master's, you could get your licensure renewed easily. Around and round we went in the educational system. And I got to say, I love teaching. I love the students. I love their families. I loved what I was teaching, but I hated the boxes of paperwork. And I hated having people looking at what I was doing and wanting me to follow all various bullet points and write about it. And anyway, I left in after 22 years. I couldn't do it anymore. If you leave at 30 years, if I had left at 30 years, I would have had a great benefit package. Now I believe it's 35 years they're expecting you to teach. But I got a pretty good benefit after 22 years. I was invested in the system. I took a lump sum and I put that in an annuity so that I have little money coming in every month now that I'm retired. And I'm getting my pension every month. It's not as large as if I had stayed on for 30 years. And then there is the Social Security problem. You see, not every teacher starts teaching right after college and keeps teaching until they retire. I worked in the world at shit jobs for many, many years, supporting myself as an artist and a human being. And all of that, I had to pay into Social Security and Medicare, and I was cool with that until I found out that there was this thing called the Windfall Tax law. It's only in certain states. Certain states will not let you keep your entire Social Security if you're getting a pension from a state retirement fund. They think it's double dipping, which is crazy because the money I put into Social Security was from the time I was 18 until I was 43. And then after I left teaching, I put in another 8 or so years. And none of that money went into my retirement fund and went into Social Security. So I tried yelling at my congressperson, Tim Ryan, many years ago, and got nothing. He said it was a state problem. It's a problem I can't solve by myself, but I have to live with it. I have to live with the fact that the system took a lot of my money and is keeping it because they want to. They want teachers to live as poorly as possible, I guess. I don't know. The fact of the matter is, though, I want to reassure you that even though I was making a lot more money as a teacher, I still was achieving my goal of not making more than $10,000 a year if you look at inflation. because $10,000 in 1973. Look at U.S. inflation since 1973. $10,000 in 1973 is equal to $69,086.94 in 2024. And I think there was my last year of teaching, I finally hit 70,000 on my contract. So 1 year I went over, but to balance them out, I think I've done it remarkably well in living frugally and with a mind on the planet and my place on the planet. Well, this is editor Wanda back on because I have been recording with the microphone this time, except when I was manipulating the screen, I would move it out of the way. And so the recordings are going to be wonky, but I'm just not going to do them over and over again. I can't. It's just taxes. I finished them. I'm living a life that is economically sound and in balance. I think with the planet, I have the privilege of doing so because of my pension and because of my union. And although I have complaints about Social Security and the windfall tax, I am on the way to totally owning my home in 6 years. I've been paying for it since 1999. My car is paid off. My student loans were forgiven. Life is good. So, everybody, enjoy the Stupor Bowl. Enjoy the post-Stupor Bowl glow, because when you're watching this, it's Monday. And I'll see you next week. Bye.